Russian roulette. Who knows what it is? Boom! Right. That's when you play between your life and your death. And the chances, most oftentimes, are like 50-50. Today I'm going to tell you about the time when I played a Russian roulette, not necessarily with a gun. It all happened in 1990, in the month of May. And at that time I was a member of the polar expedition, and I was the only English-speaking guide for the group of TV France, CNN, CBS, like the biggest news companies, because they were covering the polar expedition of a very brave person from UK to raise the funds for the Multiple Sclerosis Society. So I was the only speaking voice there, and it gave me some benefits because I could say to my English-speaking friends whatever I wanted, and they could easily agree to anything I was going to say. So our expedition was actually drawing to its end because it was already too long. We had to wait for a few famous polar explorers to come from the North Pole. It was like 80 kilometers from the place where we lived. So the day came. We packed the bags onto the military airplane because that was the only airplane we had with us at the polar station. I do not remember exactly the type of the aircraft, but it was like N-12, something like that. It was a big fuselage aircraft only for the transport aviation and especially the polar aviation. So we uploaded everything, all our stuff. There were lots of cameras, there was a lot of video recording equipment, audio recording equipment, and we safely went to sleep. It was a polar day, so we could hardly sleep that day, though it was night. And the next morning, when we woke up, it was very dark. What happened? The snow blizzard came, and the place where we lived actually were head over heels with snow. The initial hours, we were trying to dig out of the snow. Then there was a beautiful day out there, and again we were rushing towards our airplane because we were supposed to leave. Being on the North Pole for quite long was not a very pleasant experience, but it is, so we were eager to go back home. But then a pilot approached me and he said, "Andrey, I have a very tiny problem." I said, "Okay, what type of problem?" Because the plane is there, engines are running, and my TV reporters and the guy on a wheelchair from the Multiple Sclerosis Society is on board. And he said, "You know what? Suddenly the big cyclone came and the temperature is rising." I said, "So what?" He said, "You know, the problem is that runway is not the runway. This is a piece of ice. And the problem is that it starts to slowly melt. Because the days before it was like -25. All of a sudden the cyclone came and it was near zero plus something." I said, "So what?" He said, "You know, the problem is that it's like 50-50 chances that our plane will be able to take the speed necessary enough to take off." Well, that I did not like a lot what he said, and he told me, "Andrey, go and communicate with the other team members. What shall we do?" I said, "Okay, what options do we have?" "You know, we do not have too many. Option number one, you jointly tell me that we go for the takeoff. And option number two, as the temperature is going up, then probably you will have to be stuck at the base for another 3 to 4 months." The problem was there is no actual communication back then in 1990, and the way how you could get off from the base was by ship or by helicopters. At that time there were a lot of problems with helicopters because the season was not a good one. So, well, the word was there. 3 months to stay, or you take up your minds and you decide to take off. And then it was on my shoulders to explain it to my team. I was in a plane, and I told them, "Look guys," I did not tell them anything about the Russian roulette, but I said, "Okay, there is a kind of adventure which we might experience. And this adventure actually is that," well, I did not say about it, we will not take off. I said, "You know, we need to celebrate. Because this is the end of our polar journey and we need to celebrate. This is a Russian tradition." They said, "Okay, what shall we do?" All of a sudden, all of us were staring at the plane's far corner, and we saw a huge case of a famous Russian drink. The celebration started. It ended in approximately 2 hours. They did not understand why and what we were celebrating, because it was the Russian tradition to celebrate while we were leaving the North Pole. Then I came back to the pilot and I said, look, what we can do, we can play the Russian roulette, because definitely they will not stay here, and we may try. So the guy said, all right, let's do it. And then I remember the first moments when the engines were put on a full thrust. These moments seemed to me like lasting endlessly, because I heard the snow underneath the wheels. Then definitely, as you may see me here in front of you right now, nothing has happened to us. So this celebration was definitely one of the joyfuls in my whole life. And now when I look back, I'm thinking whether I would again take a chance to play a Russian roulette like I did when I was 21. And I think probably not. Because nowadays I would, maybe I'm just a grown-up person, I would weigh cons and pros and pluses and minuses, but back then, definitely youth gives you some kind of recklessness, which at times you may be very sorrowful about, but at times that gives you the experiences which you will never forget. Like it happened with me when I played my Russian roulette with that memorable takeoff.